Hey guys, tonight we're taking you very high into the cold, echoing towers of a Gothic cathedral. The kind with stone walls that sweat, staircases that spiral forever, and bells that could probably sue for noise pollution. You're not visiting as a tourist though. Oh no, tonight you're the new bell ringer. Congratulations or condolences. Because honestly, between the rope burns, the vertigo, and the rats, you're probably not going to survive the week. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. You wake up in a room, the size of a monk's closet, because it was a monk's closet. The floor is dusty, your straw mattress is suspiciously lumpy, and something possibly a weasel is watching you from the rafters. The morning sun hasn't even cracked the horizon, but your job doesn't care. Bell ringers don't get mornings. They get summoned, a single knock at your door. Then silence. You already know what that means. You stumble outside in half-buttoned robes, clutching your belt rope like it's a weapon. The cathedral looms above you, its spires stabbing at a sky still dark with yesterday's clouds. You're not sure if the silence is holy or just ... warning. The master ringer is already waiting by the main arch, chewing something too slowly to be food. He looks at you the way a crow looks at bread it doesn't trust. Well, he grunts. They're not going to ring themselves. You nod like that makes sense. The climb begins. Step 1. The first set of 82 stairs, known locally as the welcoming. It's a narrow spiral tunnel where your shoulder brushes the wall on every turn. And there's a tiny window halfway up that looks out on exactly one pigeon and half a gargoyle. Step 2. A wooden ladder. Very old, very questionable. The wood creaks with every shift of your weight like it's whispering regrets. Step 3. A vertical crawl through a stone hatch so small that even the bishop's cat once got stuck. And finally, you arrive in the ringing chamber. It's darker than you expected. The floor is uneven. The air smells like old rope and mild despair. And there, hang above you, is your new boss. The Bell Dot. It's a monster of bronze and iron, taller than a man and much louder. It even has a name, Judith, after a saint who once killed a man with a tent peg. Fitting. The master ringer hands you your first rope. Pull when I say not before. Not after, or she kicks. You nod again, slightly terrified that he said she. You take the rope. It's rough, splintery in places, and already stained with the sweat of your forgotten predecessors. As you wrap it around your gloved hands, you did bring gloves, right? Your stomach clenches. The first pull is always the worst. Now, the master says that you pull. The rope yanks you upward like you've just been rejected by the earth itself. Your feet leave the ground. Your stomach leaves your body. For one glorious, horrifying second, you are flying badly. Then gravity remembers. You exist and flings you downward like a sack of humble pie. And the bell sings. The sound is not so much a chime as a roar. It fills the chamber. It fills you. It's in your teeth, your lungs, your kneecaps. It's so loud it might just be rewriting your birth certificate. You barely hear the next now. Over the thunder. But you pull again, and again, and again. Rhythm begins to settle in your body like a second heartbeat. Pull, breathe, duck, pull, breathe, pray. You lose track of time. You lose track of your toes. You're pretty sure you lost a piece of your dignity around pull number 5. When the final toll fades into silence, you're shaking. Your gloves are damp. Your back is a question mark. You look to the master ringer for some kind of approval. Didn't die, he says. That's a start. Later, back in the cloisters, someone hands you bread and a chunk of cheese hard enough to chip stone. You chew in silence, the world still humming in your ears. You can't tell if it's the bells or just the permanent damage. Another bell ringer. An old woman named Theris sits beside you. She doesn't speak, just shows you her hands. Calloused, crooked, one finger missing. You try not to read into it. Judith likes you. She says after a while, You're not sure whether to be flattered or terrified. That night, as you lie in your hay-filled approximation of a bed, you realize something. You can still hear the bell, but it's not ringing. It's breathing, just waiting. Welcome to the tower. You barely slept last night, or maybe you did, but it's hard to tell when every dream involves being yanked into the air by a screaming rope and dropped back down into medieval chiropractic hell. The bell Judith apparently still echoes in your bones. Your wrists ache, your shoulders burn, and your thighs? They've declared mutiny, but none of that matters now, because the second morning of your bell ringer apprenticeship begins exactly the same as the first, before sunrise, with a knock on your door that sounds suspiciously judgmental. Today, you face your nemesis, the stairs. The master ringer meets you at the base of the spiral, looking freshly awake and deeply unbothered. He hands you a bundle of cloth and a grimy satchel. Put these on. Take that up. You open the bundle. It's a harness-patched leather, mostly held together by hope, and the satchel is filled with tools. A wedge, a hammer, a brush, and what looks like a dried lemon wrapped in string. What's the lemon for? You ask, for you to wonder. He replies, and up you go. The 387 steps to doom. That's what the others call it. You thought they were exaggerating. They weren't. You start strong, your boots clunking against the stone as the morning air nips at your ears. By step 73, you're already sweating through your robes. By step 112, your legs feel like pudding. At step 192, your lungs issue a formal protest. Somewhere around step 261, you stop and lean against the wall, trying not to vomit or cry or both. There's a tiny window here, just like yesterday. It frames a tiny sliver of sky and the broken nose of a gargoyle named Hubert. He's smiling, probably because he doesn't have knees. You resume your climb, this time slower, like you're carrying a full cathedral on your back, which, in a metaphorical way, you are. When you finally reach the ringing chamber, you half collapse onto the dusty floorboards, panting like a dog that lost a bet. Judith looms above you, silent for now, but you can feel her watching. Today is maintenance day, because these bells aren't just rung. They're worshipped, cursed at, polished, repaired, and occasionally spoken to like sulky teenagers. Your job this morning is to inspect the clappers. Yes, that's the real word, and make sure none of them are cracked, rusted, or hosting any more of those nightmarish wasps you met last week. You strap into the harness with trembling fingers. The master ringer nods silently and lowers you into the space between two of the giant bells, like a worm descending into the throat of a sleeping dragon. The first thing that hits you is the smell. It's like centuries of candle. Smoke and pigeon poop had a baby and left it here to ferment. You breathe through your mouth. It doesn't help. You tap the clapper gently with your hammer. Tonk, solid. You brush away a layer of dust so thick it might be sentient. That's when you notice the carvings on the inside of the bell. Yes, inside someone's etched a tiny message in Latin. You don't read Latin, but the drawing next to it is of a bell with legs, chasing a man who looks very unhappy. Hilarious that you crawl to the next bell, dodging cobwebs the size of hammocks. This one's older, the bronze worn smooth from centuries of tolling. As you brush off the grime, you see something scratched deep into the metal. A date. 1347. The year the Black Death arrived. Your skin goes cold. You remember the master ringer mentioning something about plague bells. Bells that rang over and over, day and night for the dying. Some people believed the vibrations could purify the air. Others just wanted to hear something human while everything else fell silent. You press your ear to the bell because you're either brave or stupid, or both. For a moment, you swear you hear a faint tone. Not ringing, humming. Then the floor shifts, just slightly. A tremble. Judith is waking. You scramble back, hands sliding on the wooden beam. trying to pull yourself up before the first toll.2. Lake.boom. It single quotes as like being punched in the chest by a very enthusiastic ghost. You curl inward, clutching your ears as the chamber erupts in sound. Judith tolls again. The whole tower shakes. You bite your tongue. Somewhere below, dust pours from a cracked stone archdot, and through the thunder, you hear laughter. The master. Ringer still holding the other rope. You'll learn, he says, casually tying off the rope while your ears scream for justice. Back on the ground Much later, you stagger into the cloisters like a survivor from a war no one warned you about. Theres hands you a mug of something warm and suspiciously thick. Carrot beer, she says, as though that explains anything. You drink it anyway. It tastes like betrayal. First real climb, then. She asks, you nod, she grins. You only have to do it every single day for the rest of your life. Oh good. Before bed, you write in the little journal they gave you on your first day. The cover says Quasimodo was an amateur. You write exactly one line. The bells don't. Just ring. They breathe. And now, I think they've inhaled me. You close the book. Then, as you blow out your candle and settle into bed, a low hum creeps through the stones. Faint, rhythmic. Familiar. Judith is snoring. You wake up to something scratching the inside of your ear. Not metaphorically, actually scratching. You sit up fast, swatting wildly, and manage to fling a small, disgruntled beetle across the room. It glares at you, then vanishes into the couchy corner. You're not even surprised anymore. The tower has bugs. The bugs have names. You're probably going to be one of them soon. This morning's call comes earlier than expected. No knock this time, just the slow tolling of the small Vespers bell. That one rings for unusual events, visiting clergy, surprise funerals, or you've learned training rituals. You find the master ringer standing beside a coiled mess of ropes laid out like a medieval game of Twister. He gestures wordlessly, and Theres appears behind him, dragging something in a bucket. Time to learn the pattern, she says. Rope work, cadence, and the ritual. You don't like the sound of that last one. Today's lesson takes place in the lower practice chamber, which is just a fancy name for a dark room with moldy floorboards and a ceiling low enough to threaten your dignity. It contains 6 small practice bells on pulleys, each one named after a minor saint who probably died of boredom. You're shown how to grip the rope, not too tight or you'll lose your fingers, not too loose or you'll fly like a sack of angry laundry. The rhythm is strict. Each bell rings in a sequence. You memorize it like a dance choreographed by someone who hated dancers. The master ringer watches. Occasionally he grunts. Once he claps sarcastically. You spend hours practicing. Pull, breathe, duck. Ring, release, reset. By mid-morning, your arms are noodles and your fingers tingle like they've been stung by 100 judgmental bees. That's when Theres hands you the bucket. What's this? You ask, peering inside. A dead pigeon. Of course it is. Time for the initiation ritual, she says, as if this explains anything. You follow her up the side stairs, not the main 387 steps, thank mercy, but a smaller, wobblier set that winds along the cathedral's southern buttress. You reach a tiny stone alcove with a view over the graveyard. The wind here whistles in Latin. This is where we leave the offering, Theres says. You blink. To the bell. To whatever keeps the ropes from snapping mid-ring, she replies, and deposits the pigeon in a stone bowl already stained with ancient things you'd rather not name. A moment of silence follows. Then she mutters a short rhyme in a dialect you don't recognize, spits over her left shoulder, and hands you a pebble. For your pocket, keeps the bats away. She's smiling, but somehow it doesn't feel like a joke. Back in the main tower, your training continues. You're shown how to reset a bell that's gone stubborn, which apparently involves crawling beneath the bell platform with a mallet and whacking the axle until it remembers how to behave. This is called coaxing. You try it once. The bell shifts half an inch and nearly erases your kneecap. You call it something other than coaxing. Later, Therese tells you about the rope ghosts. Yes, rope ghosts. Sometimes late at night. She says while handing you a bruised apple, you'll hear ropes creaking. But no bells ring. That's the ghosts practicing. We don't stop them. Can't you cut the ropes? You ask Dot. She looks horrified. Absolutely not. They don't like interference. You make a mental note. Don't touch ghost ropes, Dot, as evening falls. You're assigned your first solo pull on the Angelus bell. This one's smaller, sweeter. It chimes during sunset prayers and for particularly cheerful funerals. You take position, hands firm, knees bent like they told you. On the count of 3, you pull. The rope answers like a living thing, gentler than Judith, but still powerful. The bell sings, its voice echoing down the nave. You hear the monks chant. You hear footsteps stop below. For a second, you feel dot, weightless. Not pulled, not pressed. Just suspended in that sound. You're doing it. You're really ringing a cathedral bell, alone. And nothing has collapsed or caught fire or exploded. You feel proud. Which, of course, is when a rat runs across your foot and you nearly drop the rope and your dignity. You recover. Barely. The final ring fades into the stone. Silence settles. You take a breath, slow and shaky. And then you hear it. From somewhere above, a single thump, then a distant creak. You freeze. The ropes aren't moving. You're sure of it. No one else is in the tower. Not at this hour, Dot, and yet. The bells whisper, Dot. It could be wind. Could be wood shifting. Or maybe the ghosts are practicing. You head down. Slowly, every creaking stair reminding you that this tower has been here. Longer than your entire family tree, and will probably outlive your kneecaps. Back in your room. You collapse onto your mattress. The beetle from this morning is back. You name him Morris. Before you drift off, you hear a faint noise from the tower above. Dot creak. Dot pause. Dot creak. Dot the ropes are practicing again. Maris approves. You dream of ropes. Tangled ropes. Tightening around your arms, legs, even your teeth. One slips like a serpent around your neck, just before Judith tolls, and your whole body jolts awake. Drenched in sweat and the faint smell of stale hay, Morris. The beetle is sitting on your chest, judging you. Probably wondering if you'll last the week. Dot. You already know today's going to be rough. Your hands feel like someone tried to iron them flat. Your shoulders ache in places you didn't know. Had names. But the tower waits for no one, especially not a soft, half-trained bell ringer, who's starting to hear things in their sleep. You stumble out into the gray light and find the master, Rinner, already waiting with 2 ropes slung over one shoulder, and a scowl reserved only for sunrises. Big day, he says. Mass bells. You don't know what that means yet. You're about to find out. Sunday Mass in a Gothic cathedral is not a subtle affair. It's more like a coordinated sonic attack wrapped in incense and Latin. The bells are choreographed with military precision calls for the priests, the lay people, the choir, the wine, the bishop's cat, and possibly the Holy Ghost if he's available. There are 6 bells involved, and all must be rung in a sequence so exact that a mistimed chime could make it sound like someone's been excommunicated by mistake. You're assigned bell number 4, Seraphina. She's deceptively gentle looking. Smaller than Judith, smoother around the edges. But don't be fooled, Seraphine's a diva. Her rope is slick with wear, her weight tricky to manage. She'll lull you into confidence, then snap your wrist like a breadstick. Your job is to pull. At the 5th beat after the 2nd toll of bell 2. Not before, not after. You mess this up, and half the choir might faint. The other ringers line up like a squad of medieval gymnasts. The master ringer calls the pattern. You nod, eyes on your rope. Therese gives you a wink and a thumbs up. You can't decide if that's encouraging or a last rite. And then the call comes. Ready now, bell 1 chimes. Bell 2 follows. Then the rhythm begins. You count 1, 2, 3. 4-pull. Serafina lifts you 6 inches into the air and spits you back down like a disgruntled donkey. But you land the strike. Clean, crisp, echoing off the nave like a note from heaven. You do it again and again. The rhythm becomes a chant in your bones. You're not just ringing anymore, you're speaking with the building itself. A language of bronze and breath. By the 5th round, you're sweating through your robe, your gloves slick, your arms trembling. You barely notice the blister forming on your palm. You only notice the silence when it finally stops. Then, applause. Not for you, of course. For the mass, but still you feel something warm flicker in your chest. Until the master ringer walks past and mutters, 1 pull late on the 7th, don't let it happen again. Which, in bell ringer language, is basically a standing ovation. Later, you sit outside the cathedral, eating a crust of bread that might be older than the building. Your hands are raw. Your legs twitch every time you hear a bird. A choir boy walks by and whispers, "That was you on Serafina, right?" You nod. "She sounds mean," he says, and runs off. You smile, because yes, she is, but you rang her. Thurs joins you, plopping down with a flask of something that smells like pine needles and regret. Mass days are the worst, she sighs. Except feast days, and weddings, and funerals where the family wants custom tolls. And Tuesdays, you blink. What's wrong with Tuesdays? She shudders. Long story, involving a goat, 3 monks, and a very confused bell. You don't. Ask. As the sun lowers, the tower casts a long shadow across the graveyard. You spot the pigeons gathering along the upper ledge again. You've learned by now, if they take flight suddenly, something's about to go wrong. Sure enough, as dusk sets in and the final bell chimes vespers, one of the ropes in the practice chamber snaps. Not during use. Not under tension. Just snaps, a clean break. Frayed at the end, like it gave up. You and Fairies stare at it. No one touched it. Nothing moved. The air is still, she sighs. Probably the rope ghosts. Again. Do they usually snap the ropes? You ask. She shrugs. Only the ones they don't like. You look at the other ropes, the ones you've been using. You try not to take it personally. That night, back in your room, you turn your gloves over in your hands. The leather is wearing thin already. There's a smear of blood where the blister popped. Morris climbs onto your pillow and makes a tiny clicking sound, like a cricket with insomnia. Outside, the wind picks up. You hear a low creak from the tower. Not the bells. Not tonight, but the ropes. They're whispering again. You wake up face down in straw, with a crust of dried blood in your palm and rope burns tracing your forearms like medieval tattoos. Morris is perched triumphantly atop your boot, chewing something unidentifiable. You sit up, groaning. Every joint complains in Latin. You might have dreamt about bells. Or maybe that was real. At this point, you're not convinced you ever stopped ringing. Outside, the air smells like cold stone and yesterday's incense. A fine mist clings to the cathedral walls like the ghost of a forgotten mass. You shuffle toward the cloister yard, blinking against the pale light, and nearly trip over Theres. She's crouched on the stones, feeding breadcrumbs to a 3-legged crow. "You're up," she says without looking. "Good. Today you learn about tower wildlife." You freeze. Is this another metaphor? "Nope," she says, tossing another crumb. "We're dealing with actual rats." Rats, as it turns out, are the least concerning tenants of the bell. Tower. You're handed a lantern, a broom, and a sack that once held turnips, but now smells like damp linen and dread. The master ringer appears with a book so old it might qualify as fossilized wisdom. He opens it and points to a sketch. That He says, is a cleaning schedule from 1472. We still follow it, more or less. You peer at the page. The sketch appears to depict a man sweeping while weeping. You relate. The bell tower, like all ancient things, has crevices, hidden nooks, strange doorways, passages between beams that no one talks about, but everyone avoids. You learn quickly that cleaning really means disturbing things that would prefer to remain undisturbed, like the one-eyed owl, living just above Judith's platform. His name's Bernard, Therese whispers. He's mostly harmless, except during Lent. You nod solemnly, unsure whether that's a joke or a threat. As you work your way across the rafters with your broom, you discover other surprises. A set of forgotten sandals tucked into a beam, a small pile of acorns arranged in a perfect spiral, and a tiny painted portrait of a woman hidden behind a wooden support. She was the bell ringer's wife, Therese says when you show it to her. Or mistress, or muse, or possibly a very angry nun. No one's sure. You return it carefully. It doesn't feel right to move it. By midday, your sack is full of mouse nests, feather clumps, mysterious crumbs, and a single very offended rat. You climb higher into the upper belfry, where only the bravest or the dumbest go. The air is colder here, thinner, the beams older. They creak when you breathe. Up here, the bells seem to loom even when they're still. You can't help but wonder if they're listening. And then you hear it. A faint rustling. You freeze, lantern held high. From behind one of the supporting beams, a shape moves. Not fast, not large, but deliberate. You inch forward. It's a cat. A skinny gray creature with mismatched eyes and a chunk missing from one ear. It blinks at you slowly, like it's evaluating your spiritual worth. Then it vanishes behind the stones. That's Archbishop, Therese says from below. He's been here longer than any of us. Don't try to pet him. He bites existentially. You descend in the late afternoon with your sack full, and your dignity scattered somewhere between Judith's axle and a bat. Guano Stain, the master. Ringer inspects your haul, grunts and says, better than the last one. You don't ask who the last one was. You suspect they're still up there, spiritually speaking. Later, while sitting by the cloister wall, you hear an older ringer tell a story about the belfry baptism. It's an old tradition where new recruits were anointed not with oil, but with a dusting from the oldest bell's clapper, supposedly for luck. More likely for tetanus. Still done sometimes, he says, sipping from a cup that smells like vinegar and remorse. Usually if the tower starts acting funny. Funny how? You ask. He just smiles. A gap-toothed thing full of too much memory. You sleep poorly that night. Not because of the cold, or the ache in your spine, or the fact that Morris has now recruited 2 more beetles and is clearly forming a society. No, you sleep poorly because you hear something new. Not bells, not ropes, not even footsteps. It's breathing. Not yours. Not human. Slow, steady, just beneath the stone. You sit up. The sound fades. You check the window. No wind. You stare at the ceiling. And there, above you, you swear the stone pulses just once like a heartbeat. The cathedral. You realize isn't just a building. It's alive. And now it knows you. You wake up with the feeling that someone or something was watching you all night. It clings to your skin like cathedral dust, fine and impossible to shake off. You lie still for a moment, listening. Nothing but silence. Too much silence. Even Maris seems unusually reserved. He's tucked himself under your pillow like he knows something you done. Single quotes T. Eventually, the morning bells pull you from bed. Not with sound, but with absence. They didn't ring. No lauds, no chime to call the monks to prayer. The hour passes. Quiet, uneasy, you pull on your robes and step outside. The air is thick with fog, as if the cathedral is hiding inside a cloud, or maybe trying to vanish. You find Therese by the side cloister, holding a coil of rope and staring up into the mist. "The bishop's coming," she says, without looking at you. That's not good news. When bishops visit, it means one of three things. Someone's died, someone's been caught, or someone's about to be demoted to a monastery in the Alps. Sometimes all three. Do we know why? You ask Dot, she shrugs. He wants a full demonstration, all bells. Full ring, midnight. You blink. Midnight? She nods grimly. He's fond of dramatics. Claims the acoustics are more heavenly when the town sleeps. You glance up. At the tower. It looms, still and pale in the fog. Heavenly. Sure, the rest of the day is preparation. You're sent to polish the clappers with vinegar and ash, which smells exactly as romantic as it sounds. You oil pulleys. You replace 2 splintered beams in the practice chamber. The master ringer barks orders with increasing urgency, and even the older bell ringers move with unspoken tension, like they're trying not to disturb something that hasn't decided whether it's sleeping or just pretending. At sunset, a cart arrives. Not just any cart. The bishop's cart. It's black lacquered wood, trimmed with gilded symbols that you suspect no one actually understands. Out steps the bishop himself, tall and thin, and wrapped in enough silk to start a scandal. His hat is too large. His expression is too small. He sniffs the air like it offends him. I'll expect the full ring. Midnight sharp. And not a second before, he says. The master ringer bows. Everyone bows. You do too, slightly less gracefully, because your spine is still recovering from yesterday's ladder incident. Night falls heavy and slow. You eat a dinner of boiled cabbage and questionable cheese. Theres lends you her extra gloves. Midnight rings blister different. She says, you're not sure what that means. You find yourself back in the tower at 11:30 p.m., surrounded by ropes, bells, and people trying to look more confident than they feel. The fog hasn't lifted. It's somehow found its way into the belfry, curling around the beams like a curious spirit. The bells stand ready. Judith, Seraphina, Aurelia, Michael, Peter, and the Angelus. Their ropes are freshly tied, their bolts checked twice. You take your place by Seraphina again. She feels warm, as though she's already begun to move in anticipation. The master ringer raises his hand. Remember the pattern, he says. And don't look up during the third toll. You frown. Why not? He gives you a flat look. Just don't. You nod. That's fair. The bishop watches from below, wrapped in his finery like a crow in a curtain. The master ringer counts down. 5, 4, 3 and then Kalon midnight. Bell 1 tolls. Judith's voice shakes the fog like thunder. Then bell 2. Then Seraphina. Your pull is solid. The rope bites, but she sings. A clear, commanding note that cuts through the mist. Then the rhythm accelerates 1 bell, then 2 at once, then. Around, the cathedral vibrates. The town below stirs. The windows tremble. Then comes the third toll. You're not supposed to look up, but of course, you do. You catch it only for a moment. A shadow, huge, silent moving along the inside of the belfry wall. Not a person, not a bird, not something you can name. It glides past the beam above Judith and disappears into the bell tower's upper vault. Your heart skips. Your grip tightens. Thirst is ringing beside you, but her eyes are closed. The master ringer doesn't look up either. The bells finish their cycle. 12 full rounds. Then silence, perfect silence. You realize the bishop is no longer standing below. You check again. He's gone. There's no door creak, no retreating footsteps. Just fog where he once stood. The master ringer slowly lowers his rope and exhales. Well, he mutters, could have gone worse. Theres leans against the wall, pale but composed. Maybe he didn't like the tone. You all laugh. It's thin, nervous, but real. Back in your room, you lie awake. Morris has built a small barricade of dust between you and the window. You stare at the ceiling, remembering that shadow. The way it moved, too slow for wind, too quiet for flesh. The bells are still now. But not calm. They feel watchful. And somewhere just above you, something is still listening. Morning arrives late, like it's hesitant to enter the cathedral after what happened last night. You wake to the sound of muffled murmuring low, anxious voices drifting through the stone. Outside your chamber, monks shuffle back and forth, with more purpose than usual, robes brushing the floors like whispers. Therese is already waiting by the cloister wall when you find her, sipping something herbal that smells like burnt leaves and regret. You saw it, didn't you? She asks without preamble. You nod slowly. The bishop? No, she says, and for the first time since you've met her, she looks tired. I meant the shadow. You hesitate. What is it? She doesn't answer. Instead, she gestures. For you to follow. You pass the practice ropes, the side chapel, and then through a narrow door you didn't know existed, set into the wall behind the sacristy. Inside is a tight spiral staircase, unlit and slick with age. It leads downward. We don't take the new ones here until they've made it past the midnight ring, she says. Now you have. At the bottom is a room that smells like ink and candle smoke. Dust motes hang in the light like ancient secrets. Shelves line the wall, scrolls, ledgers, brittle pages bound in cracked leather. This is the tower archive. She pulls out a thick volume and lays it open on the table. The page is filled with diagrams, bell patterns, dates, and beside them, symbols, notations in red ink, some circled, others crossed out violently. These are the old formations, Therese murmurs. Not just rhythms, configurations, bells can be used differently. They always said ringing was about time, about signaling prayer. But that was never all of it. You scan the pages. One diagram catches your eye, a series of overlapping arcs that resemble the cathedral's floor plan. In the center, the belfry. Around it, concentric circles. And at the very center of that, something sketched hastily in black. Do you know what that is? She gives you a look. I know we're not supposed to ring it. There's no name, no label, just a number. Bell 13. But there are only 12 bells, you whisper. Therese nods slowly. Exactly. Before you can ask anything else, the master ringer calls from above. Storm's coming. We secure the ropes. You spend the next hour tying off cords, fastening shutters, and packing sandbags around the base of the bell platforms. Storms don't treat cathedrals kindly, especially not towers full of hollow bronze mouths, waiting to shout into the wind. By late afternoon, the clouds roll in like bruises across the sky. Rain lashes the stones. Thunder follows, not the theatrical kind, but the deep, rumbling sort that feels personal. As the winds rise, one of the younger ringers, Elias, calls you to the west stairwell. His voice is tight, his eyes wide. Something's wrong with Judith. You follow him up to the belfry. The tower groans around you, wood and iron flexing in protest. When you reach Judith, you feel it immediately. She's moving, not swaying in the wind, not vibrating. Rotating, slowly. Her clapper swings. Like a pendulum, even though no one's touched the rope. You stare. Therese appears beside you, panting. Back away, she says sharply. Don't speak her name right now. Elias steps back. You do too. There's a pause, then a single soft bong. Not a full strike, a breath. A warning. Then silence. The master ringer arrives moments later. Soaked and scowling. Secure the bell, he growls. She shouldn't be moving. I didn't touch it, Elias insists. I swear. I haven't rung all day. No one has, Therese adds quietly. Judith shouldn't be ringing. You anchor the ropes with extra knots, weights, and prayers mumbled under your breath. Even so, as you descend the stairs, you hear a faint echo following you down. It isn't repeating the wind. It's answering you. That night, during the worst of the storm, you dream of a staircase. It winds downward forever, carved from dark stone and wrapped in silence. At the bottom is a single bell larger than Judith, older than the cathedral itself. You reach out, compelled to ring it, and just before your hand touches the rope, you see the bishop. His eyes are empty. His mouth is full of rope. You wake up choking. Maurice is nowhere to be seen. And outside, above the thunder, you hear a soft chime just once, not any of the 12, but 13. The storm passes by morning, but the silence it leaves behind is heavier than thunder. No birds, no carts in the street, not even the usual creaking from the rafters. Just the sound of water dripping from the tower stones, as if the cathedral itself is sweating. You drag yourself out of bed, boots squelching as you step into a puddle that somehow formed inside your room. Morris is back, perched on your windowsill and staring at you like you should already know what's coming. Down. In the cloisters, the master ringer looks 10 years older. His beard is still damp, and his gloves are torn at the wrists. He's not giving orders today. He's scrubbing Judith's rope with vinegar and chalk, muttering under his breath. You sit beside Therese on a stone bench slick with rain. She doesn't speak for a while. Then, heard the 13th, didn't. You nod. She presses something into your hand. A small, smooth token, circular, carved from bone or ivory. On one side, the shape of a bell. On the other, a tower split down the middle. We're going below, she says, deeper than the archive, before someone else does. You try to ask who else she means, but she's already walking. The passage she leads you to isn't hidden. It's worse, it's obvious. A door right beneath the main stairwell, marked only with the symbol for silence, 3 slashes carved into the stone. You've passed it a dozen times. You assumed it was a broom closet. That's how it hides. In plain sight, the air turns colder as you descend. The stone underfoot shifts from cut blocks to raw, crumbling limestone. Your lantern flickers, and for a moment you see shadows moving ahead, tall ones, flickering in a rhythm too familiar. Says nothing. At the base of the stairs is a chamber, unlike anything else in the cathedral. It's round, windowless. The walls are covered in carvings, bells, ropes, hands reaching up, and a spiral descending inward like the tower's been turned inside out. In the center of the room, chained to a pedestal of stone, sits a bell. Not large, not ceremonial. But old, ancient. Its surface is pitted and dark, as though it had been burned into existence. There's no clapper. No rope, and no sound. This is the 13th. Therese whispers. You step closer. You can feel it, not hear it, not see it, but feel the pressure it exerts on the room. Like it's waiting. No one rings it, she continues. Not even in dreams. Not unless, she trails off. You swallow. Not unless what? She doesn't answer. Instead, she lights a taper and sets it in a crevice beside the bell. The flame burns blue. Centuries ago, she begins, a bell ringer tried to rewrite the pattern. Add a 13th toll to the midnight mass. They say it worked for 3 nights. What happened? The 4th night, the tower rang. Without him. And the town heard something they weren't meant to. By morning, half the clergy were gone. The rest were speaking backwards or not at all. She turns to you. The bishop knows. That's why he came. You feel your pulse in your fingertips. Back in the cathedral above, someone begins to ring vespers. Early, wrong rhythm, off key. You and Therese exchange a look and bolt up the stairs. When you reach the ringing chamber, Elias is there alone, pulling Judith's rope with a strange smile on his face. Elias, you shout. Stop. He doesn't hear you. He's humming something. Not a hymn, not even music, just tones. You lunge forward. Therese grabs the rope, slashing it free with a blade. Judith groans but goes still. Elias collapses to the floor. You kneel beside him, heart racing. His eyes blink slowly. It's beautiful, he whispers. It's in the bells. Then he faints. The master ringer storms in seconds later. Sees the cut rope. Sees Elias, sees you, and nods. He rang the wrong sequence, he says grimly. Didn't know what door he was knocking on. You help carry Elias to the infirmary. He mutters in his sleep numbers, directions, sometimes names you've never heard, bells you've never seen. That night, there are no chimes. No one dares touch the ropes. But deep in the tower, you hear something else. A slow, steady creak. Not wind. Not ropes. Just waiting. The next morning, the tower feels hungover. The ropes sag lower than usual. The bells silent. The wooden beams groan with each gust of wind, not like they're settling, but like they're whispering. The entire cathedral seems to be holding its breath. Elias hasn't woken up. He lies pale and murmuring in the infirmary, twitching like he's still ringing bells in his dreams. Every few minutes his fingers jerk, as if tugging a phantom rope. You stand beside him with Therese, who's twisting her gloves into knots. We should have stopped him sooner, she says quietly. He didn't even know the sequence. You reply, it's not in the books. It's not supposed to be in any books. The master ringer enters, carrying an old lantern that flickers with greenish light. You've seen it only once before during the bishop's midnight visit. Come. He says, we need to talk. He leads you both into the cathedral's organ loft, a narrow space overlooking the altar, where the wind whispers through wooden pipes that haven't been played in years. It's quiet, forgotten, safe for strange conversations. He locks the door behind you. There's a truth we don't write down, he begins. We only speak it when the 13th toll has been heard. You feel your chest tighten. He unrolls a scroll, aged and brittle, marked with ink so dark it gleams. This, he says, is the original Tower Mandatum, written by the first bell masters, long before the cathedral was finished. You glance over it. The language is half Latin, half something stranger, sharper, older. Symbols you don't recognize dot the margins, bells with eyes, ropes that twist into hands. There are 3 sequences that must never be rung, he continues. The bishop came because one of them was heard last week. By accident, maybe. But it was heard. You point to a passage shaped like a ringed spiral. This one. He nods. It's not music, he says. It's a summons. Your skin crawls. To what? He hesitates, and then answers simply, to what made the first bell ring. No one speaks. The silence hangs like mist. You suddenly feel the weight of the cathedral around you, not protective but heavy. Watching, the master ringer finally exhales. We have to reinforce the seals. You blink. Seals? Under the tower. Carved into the foundation. The patterns keep. The 13th contained. Without them, he stops. Doesn't finish. He doesn't have to dot by nightfall. You and Therese are deep beneath the cathedral again, passing through the crypts where old priests sleep in rows of cold stone. The master ringer leads with the green glow lantern, casting strange shadows on the walls. At last, you reach a door of blackened wood, half swallowed by roots. No handle, just a carving. I doubt. He traces the number with a piece of chalk, mixed with iron powder, and whispers something in a forgotten tongue. The door groans open. Inside. Another chamber. Round, like the archive room, but different. The walls are layered with sound baffles, thick, velvet-lined stonework meant to trap echoes. And in the center is a seal carved into the floor, circular. 13 spokes, each engraved with a different bell name. The 13th. Blank. Your task. Retrace the seal. Restore it. Urs kneels beside you with a brush and chalk. Hold the line steady, she murmurs. If you smudge it, we might wake it up. You don't ask what it is. You already have a guess. You trace. Carefully. Slowly. A full circle. Then each spoke. As you draw, you feel vibrations beneath the stone fate, like a heartbeat 3 floors below. When you reach the unnamed spoke, your hand hesitates. What happens if we name it? You ask. Thirst answers without looking up. Then we owe it something. You leave it blank. That night, the bells remain untouched. Not even the Angelus chimes. You sit in your chamber by candlelight, unable to sleep. Morris crawls onto your shoulder like a guardian spirit made of armor and legs. The wind presses against the window but doesn't break in. And then just past midnight, you hear it. Not a bell, but a whistle. Long, low, and unmistakably human. Coming from the top of the tower. You light your lantern and step into the stairwell. Not because you want to, because you've been summoned. The stairwell coils around you like a serpent made of stone and shadows. Each step creaks just enough to remind you that you're alone, though something tells you, not quite. Your lantern swings, casting brief halos of light against the walls. The whistle that summoned you, it doesn't repeat, but its memory pulls you upward faster than you want, slower than you should. Halfway up, you pause. The ropes are still, the bells are silent, but the air is humming a vibration so faint it seems to rise from your bones, rather than the floor. You grip the lantern tighter. You keep climbing. When you reach the upper belfry, the fog has returned. It shouldn't be here. Not this thick. Not inside. It hangs like breath from a sleeping beast, curling around the bells. Judith looms ahead, mute but watchful. Serafina is still. The Angelus bell glints slightly in the lantern glow, and then you realize there's someone standing at the far end of the walkway. You raise the light. Not fairies. Not the master ringer. It's Elias. But not how you remember him. He's in his robe, barefoot, unmoving, eyes open, blank. He stares toward the 13th rope. Only there isn't a 13th rope. There never was, and yet you see it now. Thin, pale, frayed at the end like a forgotten thread, hanging from a beam that isn't supposed to exist. You whisper his name, Elias. He doesn't move. You take a step. The boards beneath your feet groan louder than usual, like they want to be heard. Elias slowly turns his head, and then he speaks, but not in a voice you know. 13 wants to ring. Your spine turns to glass. He lifts a hand. Not to you. Toward the rope. Elias, you say, more urgently now. You don't have to. It already heard me, he murmurs. It already knows my rhythm. He takes the rope in his hand. And that's when something grabs you from behind. Earth's panting, wild-eyed, mud on her robes. She pulls you back as the lantern drops and smashes. Don't look at him. She hisses, too late. Elias begins to pull, but it's silent. No sound. Just motion. The rope swings. His body moves in that impossible rhythm. 5 short, 1 long, 3 staggered. You've never seen that sequence before. Except, yes, you have in the archive. That cursed spiral. Theres pulls you behind Judith's base as Elias's arms move faster. His skin is pale, the veins beneath it pulsing, not with blood, but in time with the motion of his hands. The wind rises. Not from outside. From below. And then, all at once, the bells begin to chime. All 12. But no ropes are moving. The clappers strike on their own. The sound is wrong. Not the full bronze notes you know, but muffled, warped, as if the bells are ringing from underwater, as if they're crying. You try to cover your ears. It doesn't help. The sound isn't going into your head. It's already there. Elias pulls the 13th rope one last time, and it rings. No sound escapes. No tone, no echo, but you feel it. Every bone in your body stiffens. Your breath stops. The tower goes still. Elias collapses, eyes open, mouth slack. The 13th rope evaporates into mist. So does the beam. Silence returns. Real silence. Devastating silence. You sit in it, too afraid to move. Hearst finally exhales. He rang the silent bell, she says, more prayer than statement. You look at Elias. His chest doesn't rise, but his shadow does. Just for a second. It moves separately from him. And then it merges back. Stands. Come, now, before the other ringers arrive. You stumble down the stairs together, leaving the bells above swaying like they'd just woken from a long, cold dream. Back in the cloisters, the master ringer is waiting. He doesn't ask Dot, he just looks at you. Then at THers, then says, "We have to seal the belfry." You open your mouth to speak, but nothing comes out. Your voice? Gone. Taken. That's the price for hearing the 13th ring. And this now is your silence. Your voice doesn't come back the next day, Dot, or the day after, Dot. Urs checks your throat, your breath, even your pulse, just to be sure you're still you. You are, mostly, but where your words should be, there's only weight. Not pain exactly, more. Like resonance, a hum you can't control. A stillness shaped like a sound that never should have existed. It's not gone, she says gently. It's being held somewhere. You don't ask where. You can't, but part of you already knows. Elias was buried the morning after. No bell tolled, Dot, that was the rule. If the 13th tolls, no bells for 3 days. The cathedral observes. A silence so deep it feels like mourning. But not for Elias alone. You helped clean the ropes in the meantime. Hands only, no pulls. The tower remains still, like a beast digesting. The master ringer is quieter now. He watches the upper belfry, like it might blink. You catch him muttering to the bells sometimes, not in Latin, not in French. Just sound, echoes, testing for replies. Has it ever happened before? Theres finally asks him. He nods. Once, in 1621, they rang the 13th trying to end a plague. And did it work? He doesn't answer, but you notice his hands shake every time he walks past Judith. On the 4th day, the silence ends, Vespers, is called with a single toll from Peter, the smallest bell. The townspeople look up, unsure whether to feel comforted or afraid. But life resumes. Sort of, not for you though, because something changed in the belfry that night. You feel it in your sleep, in your bones, and especially in your dreams. You don't dream in images anymore. You dream in sequences. Long strings of soundless patterns. 5 short, 1 long, a pause. Then a deep pull from somewhere far away. A rhythm building like pressure behind a door. That someone someday might open. Theres notices. You're remembering the bell's language, she says. It's not just pattern, it's instruction. You write it down. She reads your notes with growing concern. These aren't just tolls. These are ... blueprints for something else. She shows you one of the oldest scrolls from the tower. Archive a diagram that maps the cathedral like a circuit board. Each bell isn't just a chime, it's a node. A switch, a piece of something much larger. And the 13th bell. It's not on the map. But there's an empty space where it should be. A hole in the pattern. A silence in the music. You start seeing it elsewhere too, in the floor tiles, in the shape of the windows, in the way the cloisters echo when no one's walking. The whole cathedral is a bell, a single ancient bell, built from stone instead of bronze, waiting to be rung. One night, you wake to a single strike, not loud, not physical. Just known. You sit up. The 13th bell rang again, not from the tower. From beneath. You follow the feeling to the crypt stairs. Theres meets you halfway, eyes wide. You heard it too, she says. You nod. The master ringer joins you both without a word. He carries a bundle old rope, sealed wax, and a clapper wrapped in linen. You recognize it immediately. It's not from any of the 12 bells. It's from the 13th. How do you have that? Theres breathes. He sighs. Because someone must, in case it ever wakes. Why didn't you destroy it? Because the 13th doesn't end when destroyed, he says. It spreads. You can't unring a silence. You can only keep it still. You descend as a trio, past the sealed archive. Past the tower mandatum, into the foundation, where the oldest stones breathe and groan. There, etched into the cathedral's deepest level, is a circle of 13 markings. All of them faint, except one. The 13th mark is glowing. Soft, Pale dot alive dot, Urs kneels beside it. The master ringer begins reciting from memory, a chant with no melody, only rhythm. You follow the beats with your fingertips, tracing the sequence on the stone. The moment you touch the 13th mark, your mind goes silent, not numb, not blank dot, just vast dot. You see bells ringing in black oceans, cathedrals rising from the bones of giants, hands that aren't hands pulling ropes made of time. You hear your own voice, echoing from far away, and then stillness. You blink dot back in your body dot. Urs is watching you. Trembling, the glow fades. The seal holds dot for now. That night, you sit. In your chamber, a cup of bitter tea growing cold beside you. Morris is curled into your glove. You can feel a hum in the leather settle, but steady. Your voice is still gone. But in your chest, in the place where words once lived, you hear a new rhythm dot, and somehow, you know, the cathedral isn't finished ringing you yet. The bells begin whispering to you in the days that follow, not with sound, with timing dot. Every step you take through the cathedral seems matched to a rhythm just beneath your feet. A click in the stone, a hesitation between footsteps, as if the tower is scanning you, measuring your gait, testing your heartbeat, learning your pace. You've become part of the pattern. Fairies watches you more closely now. Not with suspicion, something worse. Recognition. She sees what you're becoming. Do you remember the story of the hollow ringer? She asks one morning while scrubbing Judith's iron bolts with ash. And wine. You shake your head. She sighs. He was the first, or maybe the fifth. It's hard to say. His name was forgotten, but his role wasn't. He heard the bells speak, followed the sequences until he vanished. Not died, not buried, just replaced. The tower made him part of its rhythm. You raise an eyebrow. She nods, serious. He became the pattern. Every 7th full moon, they say you can still hear his sequence in the wind above the belfry. 30 notes, no rope. You want to laugh, but you can't. Literally, because your voice still hasn't returned, and the hum in your chest is louder. Now on the 3rd night, you wake up outside your room. Standing in the northern hallway between the bell pull stations. Barefoot, freezing, your lantern is lit, hanging from a nail you don't remember using. In your right hand, a slip of parchment, folded neatly. Tied with black thread, you unfold it. One sentence, written in a familiar, ancient hand. The bells do not need you awake. You don't sleep the rest of the night. In the morning, you show to Achers. Her face pales. Then it's starting. You're kept busy that day. A group of nobles are visiting for the Feast of the Assumption. The bells must toll in full sequence. Noon, Angelus, Vespers. The master ringer calls a full rehearsal. You are given Seraphina again. The mid-weight bell, the hardest pull for a single ringer. You nod and take the rope, but as you wrap your hands, you feel it again. The rhythm pulling you. It's not the official pattern. Not the one for processions or saints or sunrise. It's the one from your dreams, the one Elias hummed. The forbidden sequence. Your fingers switch. Just once. Theres notices. Stick to the schedule, she warns under her breath. You nod, but Seraphina is already swaying. Eager. The rehearsal begins. Judith tolls. Michael answers. You pull. Seraphina sings, but this time it doesn't stop. She keeps ringing even when you've dropped the rope. Her clapper moves like a pendulum caught in memory. The sound resonates. Too long, bending the note like hot metal. The air thickens. You hear a second tone. Below. From the crypt. Theres slams the brake lever. Seraphina jerks still. Everyone stares. The master ringer frowns. Wind, he mutters. But there's no wind. The nobles arrive at dusk, gilded, perfumed, laughing, like they've never heard silence. You ring the Angelus with shaking hands. It goes. Fine. Almost. Because after the last toll, as the echo dies in the nave, one of the noble women glances up at the tower and says, curious, I could have sworn I heard a 13th bell. That night, the cathedral shudders in its sleep. You lie awake in your cot, candle dimming, Morris silent. Outside your door, you hear soft steps. Not human, not quite. They pass your room. Toward the tower. You follow because of course you do. Stairwell is darker than ever. The ropes hang like limbs. Judith is visible at the top. Dimly, but she's not moving. Nothing is. And yet, there's someone standing behind her. You only see there. Outline, not Elias, not the bishop, not anyone you. No, just tall. Wearing robes that move like water, they raise a hand. You feel the pull in your chest again. The bells are reaching through you. Not for sound, but for access, for permission. The figure turns to you, no face, just a mask, smooth, bronze, etched with one mark. XII, then it vanishes. You stagger back. Behind you, Theres grabs your arm. You saw it, didn't you? You nod, breathless. She doesn't speak. She just presses a key into your hand. It's cold, old, and shaped like a bell. It's time, she whispers. You're not the apprentice anymore. You turn back to the tower. 13th bell has chosen you. The key Theres placed in your hand hums faintly. Not like metal, but like a tuning fork struck in some place beneath, sound vibrating straight through your bones. It's small, curved like a bell turned upside down, its ridges worn smooth by time or touch or both. There's no inscription, but you understand what it opens, and more disturbingly, you understand what it costs. The next morning, you're summoned to the cloister vault by the master ringer himself. No words, just a nod. Just the glint in his eyes, like he already knows what the tower has whispered to you. You find him waiting near the foot of the great spiral stairs, holding a dusty ledger, its cover bound with a red wax seal. The seal bears the symbol, 13 crossed. By a rope. Do you know what this is? He asks. You nod. It's the ledger of named ringings, a book that only 12 people in history have signed. The ones who answered the 13th bell. He hands you a quill. The page is blank, not empty. Expectant. You hesitate. But the humming in your chest grows louder. The cathedral around you seems to draw closer, like it's leaning in to listen. You sign. The ink is red. Not ink. When the name finishes forming on the page, the humming stops, for now. The master ringer sighs and closes the book. You belong to the tower now, he says. You'll keep ringing after your hands fail. You'll ring in silence, in storm, in sleep, until the 13th no longer remembers its own sound. He doesn't offer comfort. He just walks away. You're given new quarters higher in the cathedral, above the level where most novices sleep. The room is simple, bare walls, a window that faces the tower's peak, a rope ladder tied to nothing, a basin of water that never seems to warm. You find Morris already there. He's nested himself between two stacked bell sheets, watching, even. He's quieter now, as if he too is listening. That night, you dream again, but not in rhythms, not in sequences, in architecture. You walk through halls you've never seen, stairways with impossible angles, a choir of bells suspended in black sky. You pass through a cloister where 13 shadows kneel around a bell so large, it eclipses the stars. When you wake, your hands are stained with ash, and the solace of your feet are wet with dew. At breakfast, Theres doesn't eat. She's waiting. There's another door, she says. You blink. Another? She nods. Under the tower, below the seal chamber. It only opens for someone who's signed the ledger. You know, instantly, she's right. She leads you through the crypt, past the 13-spoke seal. At its edge, concealed, behind an altar used only on moonless nights, is a slit in the wall no wider than a coffin's width. The key fits perfectly. The door opens, not outward, not inward, but down. The steps spiral tighter than before. The walls sweat. The air grows thick with the smell of iron and forgotten breath. And then, at last, you arrive, a chamber of mirrors, Curved glass lines the walls, each etched with a bell. And each bell slightly wrong, twisted, warped, as if reflected from too far down in a well dot in the center of the room. A bell frame dot empty dot, but you know, what should hang there dot Urs touches the frame gently. This is the 13th's cradle. She whispers. You feel the rope around your chest tighten. Not physical, but the pull is there. A call you've resisted since your voice was taken. It wants to ring again. She steps back, and this time, it wants a choir. You stare at the mirrors that each one shows a different version of the tower. Some whole, some broken. One filled with ivy, another flooded. And only one reflects the tower burning bells. Melting down the spire, and at the very top, you. Pulling a rope made of smoke dot, you step away. This isn't just memory, you write on your slate. It's future, Theres nods, or futures. If we let the bell decide. You return to the surface in silence, but you feel it. Something has shifted. Above you, the bells are waking again. Not to ring in time, not to ring in warning, but to gather dot to listen dot, and to choose. The 13th bell doesn't toll again that week, but it doesn't have to. You feel its weight behind. Every ordinary sound of the creak of pews during morning prayer, the flutter of choir robes, the brush of a breeze under the bell ropes. Everything now carries the sense of something, almost happening. You've stopped dreaming of ringing dot, now you dream of listening dot, and in those dreams, someone is always just behind you. Not touching, not speaking, but breathing in time with the tower's sway. Theres avoids your eyes now. She speaks more to Morris than to you. You get it. You're changing. You can't help it. The bishop returns without warning. One morning, the cathedral bells ring the customary welcome for a visiting dignitary. 4 short, 2 long. But no one pulled the ropes. You step into the nave and see him already kneeling at the altar, fingers wrapped around a prayer rope that's clearly never seen use. His robe is different this time. Less embroidered. Less human. Thirst joins you at the door. You feel her stiffen. He shouldn't be here, she murmurs. You both know why. The bishop hears you approach but doesn't turn. You've signed the ledger, he says flatly. So it's true. You nod. He finally stands, turning slowly. His face has aged, his eyes have not. I rang the 13th, he says, 32 years ago. Just once. You can barely believe it. He shrugs. They thought I went to Rome. That was the official story. But I was sent away because I heard something in the silence. He reaches into his robe and pulls out a cloth bundle. Unwraps it. Inside, a second 13th key, darker than yours. Worn nearly smooth. There's always more than one, he says. Because the bell doesn't just want a ringer. It wants a successor. He stares at you for a long time. You're not ready. He adds softly, but that doesn't matter. Then he places the key on the altar and walks out. No one stops him. No bell tolls as he leaves. And that night, the wind changes. The next day, the cathedral hosts the Feast of St. Verini. The bells are expected to perform a full symphony, an 11-minute sequence of chimes involving all 12 bells in tight, mathematical precision. You're assigned the lead pull for Judith. The master ringer is unusually quiet. He walks the length of the bell floor before the ceremony, placing small brass tokens beside each station blessings, or markers. You're not sure. At the base of Judith's rope, you see it, a 13th knot. Perfectly tied. You didn't do it, but you recognize it from your dreams, from the mirrored chamber, from the fire that hadn't happened. Yet, you untie it slowly. Then the signal comes. The first chime rings. You begin the pattern, hands moving instinctively, not from training but from something older. The rhythm fills the air, spreading down the nave, out into the city. You see crowds gather outside, heads tilted toward the tower, and then one bell rings off rhythm. Not yours. Serafina. You glance across the floor. No one's pulling it. Thirst sees it too. Her eyes widen. Hold your pattern. She mouths, but another bell joins in. Michael. Then Peter. They're ringing without ringers. You freeze. The tower begins to vibrate. Not with sound, but with alignment. The 13th sequence is forming, around you, through you. You drop the rope. Everything goes silent. The bells stop mid-swing. The ropes slacken. Time itself seems to hesitate. And then the 13th bell tolls. One perfect note. But this time, it rings out loud. Every window shivers. The pigeons flee in a single wave. People in the courtyard fall to their knees, covering their ears, not in pain but in recognition. They've heard something they never should have heard. When it fades, you are on your knees. So is everyone else. Even Theres, even the master ringer. And at the center of the bell floor, a rope now hangs from the 13th rafter. It wasn't there before. You don't remember standing, but you're holding it. In both hands. Your gloves are gone. Your palms are bleeding. Maris perches beside you. And for the first time he speaks. Or maybe not in words, just a single thought. It has begun. You don't understand it fully, but you will, because the tower has made its choice. The 13th rope is warm in your hands. Not the warmth of friction or sweat, but something deeper. Like the rope remembers fire, like it was forged, not woven. It pulses gently, and you pulse with it. You try to let go. You can't. Around you, the ringing floor is still, not quiet still. No breath, no birds, no shifting beams. Even Judith feels subdued, like she's waiting for your next move. Ursa's frozen at her station. The master ringer stands with one hand on the brass safety lever, his expression unreadable. Finally he speaks. Pull it once, he says. Just once. You shake your head. He steps forward, not as a mentor, but as someone following orders. Not giving them. You have to, he says. No, Theres snaps. That's not how it works. You don't pull the 13th. It pulls you. The master ringer looks at her. And then he bows his head. I know. You feel the tension coil in your chest like rope around a winch. The cathedral is watching, listening. The whole structure feels less like a building now and more like a conductor, tuning for a sound it hasn't heard in centuries. You look up at the tower's vaulted ceiling. You swear for a moment. It shimmers. You manage to let go of the rope, but the mark it leaves on your palms is unmistakable. A faint ring burned into your skin, not a blister, not a brand, a seal. That night, the bells don't ring. Not by choice. They simply don't respond. Even Judith won't sway. You sit in the archive with Theres, poring through the oldest records, some bound in waxcloth, others on vellum so fragile it tears when breathed upon. You're looking for precedents. There are few. There's one, a single page slipped between two pages of plain chance. You find it folded into quarters, hidden in a psalter. There's no title, just a scrawled passage in shaking script. The tower chooses its tongue. Once rung, the 13th will remember its voice. The one who hears it will no longer echo, but answer. And when the cathedral speaks, do not speak back. You and Theres lock eyes. Neither of you says it aloud, but you both know what it means. The bell wants something. And now, it thinks you can answer. The next day, pilgrims begin arriving. In strange numbers. Not for a saint. Not for a festival. They don't even ask for blessings. They just come to the base of the tower. They sit. They wait. You try to question one of them, writing on your slate. Since your voice has not returned, he just smiles and hums. The pattern is familiar. 5 short, 1 long, 3 staggered. The same rhythm that Elias pulled before he collapsed. You back away. When you return to your quarters, Morris is already there. He's watching the wall, scratching something into the stone with one claw. You crouch beside him. It's not writing. It's a map. Not of the cathedral. Of below. The chamber of mirrors. the bell's cradle. And something beneath even that. A spiral staircase with no base. You place your hand on the wall. The stone is warm at dusk. The master ringer calls you to the upper floor alone. The ringing chamber is sealed off, but he leads you around the back through a crawl space used only by the original builders. You pass old plaques, carvings, dead ropes. Then you arrive in a chamber you didn't know existed. A forgotten belfry. Smaller than the others, one bell cracked, covered in runes that have faded to scars. This, he says, was the first 13th. You stare at it. It's tiny, not threatening. A foot tall at most. But it radiates a kind of silence you feel. In your teeth. It rang once, he continues. They buried it. Built the cathedral around it to hold the sound in. Then they built another tower above it. Then another. You realize what he's saying. The tower wasn't built to praise. God. It was built to bury something. And now that something is waking, you step forward, the bell cracks a little more. Just by your presence. You don't touch it, but it knows you. And in the echo of its silence, you finally understand. The 13th bell doesn't ring for anyone. It rings through someone. And you're starting to vibrate. You start vibrating in your sleep, not visibly, not violently, but inwardly, like your soul is a tuning fork and someone's begun tapping it in time with a rhythm only the tower understands. You no longer dream of ropes or bells or mirrors. Dream in frequencies. Your teeth ache when you wake. Theres notices the tremors first. Hold still, she says, placing a silver tuning key near your wrist. The moment it touches your skin, it rings, softly. No one else hears it. But she drops it anyway. It started. She murmurs. You don't ask what, because you already know. The cathedral is tuning you. By noon. The whispers begin, not from people, from stone. You pass the south nave and hear it hum behind the stained glass. You walk the cloister and hear the arches breathe. It's subtle, but you know you're not imagining it. The echo of your own footsteps returns too quickly. The corridors close behind you like a throat. The tower no longer waits for you. To approach. It's following. Morris walks a perfect spiral around your bed that night. He curls up and closes his eyes, but he doesn't sleep. His antennae twitch in time with your heartbeat. 3 days later, a bell tolls at dawn. It's not one of the 12. You race to the belfry, but nothing's swinging. Theres meets you there. Wide-eyed, you heard it too? You nod. You both stand for a long while, surrounded by unmoving ropes. Then, she walks to the 13th rafter. The one that should be empty. It isn't. The rope has returned, only this time, it's braided. Not of hemp. Not of horsehair, but of something dark and gleaming, and warm to the touch. You don't ask, you don't touch. You simply understand. The bell is no longer borrowing your voice. It's growing one of its own. That night, you descend into the mirror. Chamber alone, you no longer need the key. The stone opens for you. Inside, the glass is no longer fogged. Each mirror shows a different version of the cathedral, and in every one, you're standing in this room. But only one of you is smiling. The rest are pale. Thin. Gone in the eyes. You stare at the smiling reflection. The bell cradle behind it is full. The 13th bell hangs there, massive, molten, flickering like it's been cast from candlelight and shadow. The version of you in that mirror raises a hand. You do the same. The motions are mirrored. Then, the reflection speaks. Your voice. Back. Clear. Steady, but not from your mouth. When the tower speaks, the voice says, you do not echo. You become the call. You recoil. The mirror goes dark. By morning, the cathedral's acoustics have changed. When the monks chant the morning liturgy, the sound curls strangely in the arches. Words vanish mid-hymn. Candles flicker and go out, not from wind, but from silence. One monk faints. Another begins humming the forbidden's rhythm during breakfast and doesn't realize it. Hearst grabs your arm. It's getting stronger. You nod. She stares at the upper tower. I don't think it wants just one ringer. You both remember what Elias said days before he vanished into the rope's rhythm. It already heard me. It already knows my rhythm. It's happening again, but this time not by accident. The master ringer calls a council. The oldest ringers gather in the vaulted room where the rope patterns are kept. Dozens of scrolls, hundreds of sequences. He lays one on the table, a chart that includes a 14th position. Everyone goes still. There are only 13 bells. Someone mutters. No, says the master ringer. There are only 13. We remember, but the foundation plan, look. He points. There's a missing spoke beneath the cathedral's blueprint. A gap with faint ink marks where something was once erased. We never built the 14th bell, he says. We buried it. Silence. Then Theres asks the question none of them want to answer. What if it's not a bell? No one speaks. You feel it now. The hum beneath the stone. The pause between echoes. The weight in your chest. You're not just the 13th ringer anymore. You're its listener. And soon, you may be the only one who understands what it's saying. The 14th space won't stop pulling at you. You see it in the blueprints. Feel it in the stairs. Dream it in downward spirals, always downward. It's not marked as a chamber or vault, not labeled at all. Just a gap, a non-space. And yet, you know, it exists because you've been there. Not with your feet. With your bones. The cathedral knows it too. Every arch, every rung, every note holds a small pause, now just long enough for the echo of something missing to slip in. Morris circles you tighter at night. No longer pretending to sleep, he watches the corners of your room. You've stopped, wondering why. Some nights, the corners look back. You descend with Theres again, this time to dig. You bring no candles, no ropes, just old tools and older maps, and that same silent agreement between you. We are already too far in to stop. At the edge of the mirror chamber, behind the oldest wall, is a seam in the stone. Not visible, just felt. The key hums in your pocket. When you press it to the seam, the stone peels inward. You both step through. The air changes. Here, echo doesn't work. Your steps have no return. Your breath has no sound. You test your voice, and for the first time in weeks, a single note escapes your lips. Not a word, just a ring. Theres jumps. You cover your mouth. The chamber is round, smooth, dustless. In the center lies a bell unlike any other. Not metal. Not stone. It's made of void. You can see through it. And yet, it casts a shadow. It isn't hung from anything, but it floats, suspended by a quiet that pulls on your teeth and skull. The 14th. Theres whispers. And then it speaks. No sound, just a memory. Your first day in the tower. Elias, handing you gloves. The first time Judith rang under your fingers. Morris twitching in time with your pulse. Theres showing you the chamber of mirrors. The bishop handing you the other key. The rope burns. The silence. Then it offers you something else. Not memory, but future. A vision of the cathedral, torn open, bells screaming, ropes unraveling mid-air, ringers frozen with ropes wrapped around their throats. And above it all, the 14th bell ringing. Ringing. Calling you. You stumble back. Theres grabs your hand. We have to seal it. But you're no longer sure it can be sealed. Because the cathedral didn't bury this bell to protect the world. It buried it to protect itself. And now, it's been found. You return to the surface, unchanged in appearance. But inside, something is different. You begin to hear things no one else hears. The bells now ring with names. You pull Judith, and she sings Elias. You walk past Michael, and it moans, unburied. Serafina whispers, Theres. And the 13th? It doesn't use a word. It uses your heartbeat, perfectly matched. The master ringer watches you now, not like a student, like a bell, measuring your tension, your stance, your wind. At dinner, He finally says it aloud. You're becoming the voice. You don't deny it. You can't. The following night, a procession arrives. Unannounced. 13 figures in gray robes. Hoods drawn low. No horses. No speech. Each carries a lantern that does not flicker. They enter the cathedral without asking. They kneel beneath the tower, and they begin to hum. Not a hymn. A sequence. The 13th sequence. The master ringer steps forward. Who summoned you? One lifts their head. You freeze. It's Elias, but not as he was. This version is older. Or maybe, emptier. He points to you. Not in warning. In recognition. Thurs grabs your shoulder. You can't let them complete it. But deep down, you know, they already have. You are the final note. You are the last echo. And when the 14th bell finally rings, you will be its voice. The 13th no longer sleeps. You hear it in the walls, in the sigh of wind under closed doors, in the hush between prayers. You feel it when you move your steps, sinking not with time, but with toll. Even the smallest motion seems to follow an unseen conductor. The procession of the Grey 13 remains. No one dares move them. They eat nothing, sleep nowhere. Yet each day they hum, barely audible, but always in rhythm. One sequence, repeated. End. Always, Elias stands at the center. Watching you, he hasn't blinked once. The cathedral's atmosphere thickens. Visitors fall silent as they pass the bell tower, crossing themselves even if they don't believe. The choir begins losing its pitch. Voices crack mid-note. Acolytes faint during morning chant. The master ringer shortens all bell ceremonies. Too much sound, he mutters. It's listening. When the bishop returns for a surprise audit, he makes it as far as the transept before collapsing to his knees, whispering, "The bell is dreaming through us." He leaves before sundown. He doesn't say goodbye. One night, Theres finds you in the archive. You're sitting on the floor, surrounded by scrolls, copying the same phrase over and over onto vellum. Let the 13th remember. Let the 14th speak. She doesn't touch you. She doesn't speak. But in the silence, something passes between you. Grief? Maybe, but also resignation. You hand her one of the scrolls. "Burn it," you whisper. Your voice is back now. But it's single quotes different. Lower. Not yours alone. She nods. But you both know. It's too late. Morris disappears for 3 days. You find him curled in the cradle of Judith's bronze arm, silent. Not dead, not cold, just waiting. Like a bell that hasn't been struck. You place him in your satchel. He doesn't resist. He knows. Then at dusk, on the 7th day, the cathedral changes. Not with noise, with geometry. Stairs loop in directions. They never did. You take 5 steps and find yourself back at the bottom. Ropes hang from ceilings where there are no bells. Mirrors show futures again. And this time, there's no version of you that looks human. Some have no face. Some have no mouth. All of them are ringing. You flee back to the chapel. Panting. Thurs meets you there. "We don't have long," she says. "It's happening." You nod. The Grey 13 begin their walk single file toward the tower stairs. No one stops them. Even the master ringer bows his head. He places a bell hook in your hand. "Climb," he says. You ascend for what feels like hours. The tower is taller now. The stairs twist with intent. Every floor hums with anticipation. The Grey 13 walk ahead of you, silent, robes trailing behind like smoke. Elias walks last. He turns to you once. His mouth moves. No sound, but you understand. It is not your voice the bell wants, it's your shape. You climb. And finally, at the summit, the belfry opens. But it is not the tower you remember. It is vast. Open the sky. The other bells, Judith, Seraphina, Michael, are absent. Or changed. They appear melted, twisted upward, turned into chimes made for a hand not shaped like any human's. And in the center of the belfry, suspended without rope or frame, hangs the 14th bell. It is not metal. It is void. It turns slowly, as if breathing. And as you step forward, the gray 13 kneel. Ilias places his hand on your shoulder. You feel it. A pulse. A single. Clear toll inside you. The 14th bell has rung. No. Sound escapes, but the world notices. Clouds stop moving. Wind vanishes. Somewhere far below, 1,000 birds take flight at once. The master ringer falls to his knees. Theres begins to cry. Morris, asleep in your satchel, begins to purr. You close your eyes. You're no longer holding the bell hook. Your hands are empty. But something vast is inside you now. And somewhere beneath the cathedral, the stone begins to crack, not with violence, but with invitation. The bell has opened its mouth, and you are its voice. You don't remember speaking. You only know that when your lips part, the sky goes quiet, not silent listening. A stillness falls across the city. Fires freeze mid-flicker. Water stops in the fountains. Even the pigeons lining the cathedrals. Rafters blink once, then stay perfectly still, as though trapped inside a painting. The 14th bell doesn't swing. It doesn't have to. It uses you. And you speak not with language, but with resonance. A kind of thunder that doesn't hurt. The ears just evicts meaning. Whatever thoughts people had before you opened your mouth, they aren't thinking them now. Below, the congregation falls to their knees, not in worship. In recognition. You are the sound they've been hearing in their bones since the cathedral was built. The master ringer bows. Not deeply, but as one ringer. To another, you raise your hand. He understands. Leaves, one by one. The others follow. Even Theres, whose eyes linger too long. She doesn't want to go, but she knows. This part of the story is not hers. Not anymore. The gray 13 remain. They form a circle around the 14th bell. They do not hum. They do not move. Their robes begin to unravel thread by thread, rising into the air like smoke. You watch, unable to look away, as Elias is the last to dissolve. His mask cracks softly down the middle, revealing no face beneath, only a void shaped like a bell's mouth. Then he too is gone. You step toward the 14th. You don't feel cold. You don't feel fear. You feel hollow, not empty, just resonant. Like there is finally space inside you for something older than time. The bell breathes you in. You exhale a note. One long vibration that isn't sound at all, but recognition. I accept. The cathedral begins to shift, not collapse, unfold. Stone curls back like parchment, walls rising and lowering in impossible patterns. Columns turn into staircases. Bells grow teeth. Ropes twitch like veins. The building becomes what it was always meant to be, a body. And you are its throat. For a brief moment, you see everything. The first stone laid under moonlight, a bell cast from the melted weapons of a forgotten war, the face of the original architect, weeping as the 13th first rang. A novice girl, centuries ago, humming the exact sequence you've been hearing in dreams. And then, you see yourself, not standing in the belfry, but within the 14th bell, your face carved into its inner wall, mouth open, eyes closed. Ringing. Earth finds you hours later. Or perhaps years. Time has folded like the rest of the tower. You are seated in the belfry's heart. The 14th bell is still. You are still. But when she touches your shoulder, you blink. She kneels, whispers, "It's over." Isn't it? You smile. Just slightly, and you speak, your voice finally your own. But behind it, the faintest echo remains. Like a second mouth, always ready. You say, "Not over." And then, tuned. That night, the bells ring normally for the first time in weeks. Judith, Michael, Seraphina, all in perfect harmony. But above them, the wind carries a sound no one else records. A low, impossible hum. Not a warning, not a curse. Just a reminder. The 14th bell has rung, and the voice it chose is awake. They say the bells have returned to normal, that Judith now rings without echo, that Michael no longer skips a beat, that even Seraphina, temperamental as ever, sings sweetly when pulled. The villagers come again. They light candles, whisper prayers, leave honey and bread at the nave like offerings to a patient God. They believe the storm has passed. They have no idea what you became to quiet it. And that's the point. You no longer live in your old quarters. They've assigned you a new room high in the northern spire, far above the reach of casual visitors. The stairs to it twist in new ways each day. Sometimes you climb in silence. Sometimes you hear the bells breathing through the stone. And sometimes you don't walk at all. You just appear, because the cathedral knows you now. You're not its ringer anymore. You're part of the instrument. Theres visits less often. When she does, she brings tea and dried apples. She sits at the edge of the threshold, never stepping inside. Morris sometimes follows, twitching his tail at shadows only he can see. You still with us? She asks each time, and you always answer with the same little smile, the one that says mostly she doesn't push, because she knows. Each time the 14th bell rang, it took something and gave something back, but not equally, not fairly, not humanly. You're more yourself at night. That's when the tower really speaks low. Vibrations through the wooden beams, breathless pauses in the choir stalls. You sit near the great stained glass window, watching moonlight pass through saints who never existed, each pane flickering like an eyelid over memory. Sometimes you hum, not the 13th sequence, something softer, and the stone listens, and the bell responds. Not by swinging, just by being there. One evening, a child sneaks into the belfry, barefoot, wide-eyed, not from the clergy, just a baker's son, curious about the tower. He finds you seated beneath the ropes, hands folded. He looks at the bells, then at you. Do they ever talk to you? He asks. You glance up at the great wooden yoke of Judith, at the coil of the 13th rope still hanging untouched, perfectly still. You nod. Do they ever say anything bad? You think for a moment, then you reply. They say things only quiet. People understand. He frowns. But you're not quiet. You smile at that. Not anymore. You walk with Theres one last time. She leads you to the base of the mirror chamber, where the walls have stopped shifting. The glass now shows only one reflection. Yours. No doubles. No fire. No hollow versions. Just you. Your face is thinner. Your eyes quieter. But you're whole. She squeezes your hand. I think it's over, she says. You nod. Because it is. The bells will still ring. The ropes will still pull. The tower will still stand. But the dreaming is done. For now, that night, you return to the very top of the tower. You lie on your back, watching the sky. The stars are unusually still. You feel the cathedral breathing beneath you, a rhythm you know better than your own heartbeat. Morris curls up by your side. And for the first time in a long while, you feel the absence of weight. No hum. No pull. Just peace. Your eyes drift closed. And just before sleep takes you, you hear it, a whisper in the air. Good voice, good bell. Good night. You smile, barely. And whisper back. Ancient memories closed. Tonight is yours. Good night.